Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Every day you scroll through your feeds, watch videos, and share memes. It feels like a vast, open, and sometimes chaotic digital public square. But have you ever stopped to think about who cleans it up? Who decides which posts get deleted, which videos get flagged, and which accounts get banned? Behind the curtain of your social media experience, there's a largely invisible, multi-billion-dollar industry working around the clock to impose order. This is the unseen leviathan of the internet, a massive and costly operation that determines what we see, share, and say online. We're not just talking about a few people in an office. We're talking about a global army. TikTok, for instance, has stated it employs over 40,000 people dedicated to just this task. YouTube has 20,000. And Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, has around 15,000. Today, we're pulling back that curtain to deconstruct the staggering billion-dollar economics of content moderation. It's a story of immense costs, hidden labor, advertiser revolts, and the profound financial consequences of trying to govern the internet. So what does it actually cost to sanitize our digital world? The bill is astronomical, and it breaks down into two main categories: the human cost and the technological cost. First, let's talk about the people. Despite all the incredible advances in artificial intelligence, human moderators remain the indispensable front line in the war against harmful content. They are the ones who review the most complex, the most nuanced, and often the most psychologically damaging material that AI systems either flag for review or fail to identify altogether. The sheer scale of this workforce is something most platforms try to keep under wraps, but the numbers we have paint a picture of a global army, and paying for this army is expensive. In one revealing disclosure, it was reported that Facebook pays just one of its largest outsourcing partners, the consulting firm Accenture, a mind-boggling $500 million a year for content moderation services. This highlights a key feature of the entire industry: the extensive use of outsourcing. You see, most of this grueling work isn't done in Silicon Valley. To cut costs, platforms largely outsource it to third-party firms known as business process outsourcing companies, or BPOs. These firms are located in countries all over the world, from the Philippines and India to Kenya and Colombia. The strategy is driven by a desire to reduce labor costs, because moderators in these regions are often paid significantly less. For example, some moderators in Colombia working on TikTok content have reported earning as little as $254 a month, a tiny fraction of what a similar role would pay in the United States. But while outsourcing reduces the wage bill, it comes with enormous ethical and hidden financial costs. The work itself is psychologically brutal. These moderators are required to view a relentless stream of graphic violence, hate speech, and child exploitation material, all while under pressure to meet demanding performance targets, like reviewing hundreds or even thousands of pieces of content every single day. This leads to incredibly high rates of burnout, anxiety, and PTSD. This human cost inevitably translates back into financial costs for the BPOs and platforms through high employee turnover, the need for wellness programs, and a growing risk of litigation from former employees. Now, to even attempt to manage the sheer firehose of content, platforms have no choice but to rely on technology. Think about these numbers for a second. Every single minute, 1.7 million items are shared on Facebook, 66,000 pictures are posted to Instagram, and 500 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube. No human army, no matter how large, could ever keep up with that. So platforms have invested billions of dollars in developing and deploying sophisticated AI and machine learning systems. These automated systems are the first line of defense. They are capable of scanning unimaginable quantities of text, images, and videos in real time, pre-filtering the most overtly disturbing material, and handling clear-cut violations with a speed and scale that is simply impossible for humans. But, as you might have guessed, AI is not a panacea. These systems often struggle with the beautiful, messy nuance of human communication. They don't get sarcasm, irony, or crucial cultural context. This leads to both over-moderation, where harmless content gets deleted, and under-moderation, where truly harmful content slips through. Furthermore, these AI models are trained on existing data, which can contain its own biases, potentially leading to unfair or discriminatory moderation decisions. The development, maintenance, and constant retraining of these complex AI systems represent a significant and ongoing financial investment. All told, the global market for these content moderation solutions, both human and tech, was estimated to be around $11.9 billion in 2024, and it's projected to explode to over $30 billion by 2034. It is a massive and rapidly growing cost of doing business. But the direct costs of paying moderators and building AI are only half the story. The financial impact of getting moderation wrong can be even more damaging. This brings us to the indirect costs, starting with something called brand safety. The lifeblood of most social media giants is advertising revenue. In 2019, for example, advertising accounted for an incredible 98.5% of Facebook's $70 billion in revenue. This complete reliance on advertisers makes platforms acutely vulnerable to their concerns. No brand, whether it's Coca-Cola or Patagonia, wants its advertisements appearing next to harmful, offensive, or inappropriate content. Research has shown that a huge majority of consumers believe it's important for the content around online ads to be appropriate, and many say they would stop using a product if its ad appeared next to something unsuitable. When platforms are perceived as failing to control the spread of hate speech or disinformation, they risk an advertiser boycott. The most prominent example of this was the Stop Hate for Profit campaign in July 2020. Over 1,000 companies, including major brands like Coca-Cola, Verizon, and Patagonia, paused their advertising on Facebook to protest its content moderation policies. While the direct financial hit to a behemoth like Facebook was debated, some argued it was minimal because Facebook has over 8 million advertisers. The boycott had a massive reputational cost. It led to a temporary drop in stock price and, more importantly, pressured Facebook into making real policy changes, like creating a senior role to oversee civil rights and establishing a team to study algorithmic racial bias. This demonstrates that the threat of lost ad revenue is a powerful motivator for platforms to invest more in moderation. Beyond advertisers, platforms have to worry about their users. Content moderation is a precarious tightrope walk. If you fail to remove harmful content, you can drive away users and advertisers who desire a sanitized environment. But if you are overly aggressive or seemingly biased in your moderation, you can also lead to user churn, alienating those who feel their freedom of expression is being curtailed. When users become dissatisfied, they may migrate to alternative platforms that better align with their views, as was seen when some Twitter users moved to platforms like Gab. The financial consequences of user churn are significant. Losing customers directly translates to lost revenue, and it forces companies to increase their spending on customer acquisition to compensate, driving up costs. For a platform whose entire business model is based on engagement, every user who leaves is a lost opportunity to serve ads and generate revenue. For years, these platforms operated in a regulatory vacuum, a sort of digital Wild West where they set their own rules. That era is definitively over. Governments around the world, led by the European Union, have introduced sweeping legislation that imposes significant new legal and financial obligations. It started with the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, in 2018. While not exclusively a content moderation law, its principles of data privacy have had a profound impact. The costs of just becoming compliant with GDPR can range from tens of thousands to over $1 million for a single company, with ongoing costs for audits and legal counsel. But the real power of the GDPR is in its penalties. Regulators can issue fines of up to 20 million euros, or 4% of a company's global annual turnover, whichever is higher. We've seen tech giants get hit with massive fines. In May 2023, Meta was hit with a record-breaking 1.2 billion euro fine for illegal data transfers, Amazon has faced a €746 million penalty. While companies often appeal, the sheer threat of such massive financial penalties has forced a fundamental shift in how they operate. More recently, and even more directly targeting content moderation, is the EU's Digital Services Act, or DSA. This law introduces a comprehensive set of rules with the strictest obligations reserved for what it calls very large online platforms, those with over 45 million users in the EU. The financial implications are huge. First, non-compliance can result in fines of up to 6% of a company's global annual turnover. For a company like Google or Meta, that could be a multi-billion-dollar penalty. Second, the DSA imposes specific operational costs. These platforms are now required to conduct annual risk assessments, undergo independent audits, and provide much greater transparency, all of which require significant investment in people and technology. And to top it all off, the European Commission can charge these companies a supervisory fee of up to 0.05% of their annual global net income, just to cover the costs of enforcement. This fee alone could cost a company like Meta tens of millions of dollars every year. The regulatory hammer has fallen, and the cost of compliance is now a core part of doing business online. These immense economic forces create significant ripple effects that are reshaping the digital landscape, particularly for content creators and smaller competitors. For the estimated 50 million creators worldwide, platform moderation policies are a direct determinant of their financial viability. The most immediate and brutal financial consequence is demonetization. On a platform like YouTube, a violation of the often vague, advertiser-friendly guidelines can result in a video or an entire channel being stripped of its ability to earn ad revenue. This can be a devastating blow. The process is often opaque, leaving creators feeling like they are at the mercy of inscrutable algorithms. This has led to a growing trend of creators trying to build their own independent platforms to reduce their dependence on the whims of a single company. At the same time, the multi-billion-dollar costs of content moderation and regulatory compliance create a significant barrier to entry for smaller platforms and new startups. This stifles competition and can lead to a market dominated by the few major players who can afford the high price of admission. The economics of content moderation is a story of immense financial and human cost, a complex web of incentives and consequences that is fundamentally reshaping our digital world. For platforms, it is a core business function, a multi-billion-dollar balancing act with profound implications for their survival. For content creators, the ground beneath their feet is constantly shifting. And for the unseen army of human moderators, the cost is not just financial, but deeply personal. As we move forward into an increasingly regulated and moderated digital future, understanding these economic forces is crucial. The choices being made will determine not only the financial health of the companies that build our digital spaces, but also the vibrancy, diversity, and fairness of the online world for generations to come. The price of a governed internet is high, and it is a price we are all, in one way or another, paying. Thanks for listening to Fun Facts Online.